In the throwing action in all three sports, you can see the coil of the body and the arms, as we have discussed in the kinetic whip lessons. In all three sports, you can see the release of the club, bat, or racket from a slotted body position with a side bend of the body to allow the elbow to lead a whipping throw. Before we go back to the court, let's take a look at a few loops of the Federer and Djokovic topspin forehand that shows this complete windshield wiper movement, throwing the racket head from the slot on edge and keeping it on edge throughout the swing. And as I play these videos through twice, I'll stop the video at the key points of the swing so you can really focus on this throwing on edge windshield wiper movement that continues from the slot into the follow through. This is the new GOAT topspin forehand model that we're trying to build. Now that we're back on court, let me summarize what we saw in the two throwing videos. Me throwing the racket high in the air with it spinning around its center of mass. And then the two great GOAT candidates, Djokovic and Federer, with their topspin shot. So whether I'm throwing the racket, and I'll shoot this from the rear position to the target, whether I'm throwing the racket up in the air like you saw me, or whether I'm hitting our GOAT topspin shot, the actions are very similar. And for good reason. As I said, the throwing action underlies the stroking action on all of our shots, especially topspin and serve. But that's for another day in detail. Today we're just at the high level. So remember, if we're gonna get prepared to have a high level throw or swing, we're gonna need a wind up. We're gonna have to take our arms up and back somehow in the wax off sort of position. And then we're gonna have a hand brake, and then in order to throw up, we have to drop the racket sort of in orientation, right? And then we talked about winding back into the slot. So whether I'm gonna throw it or whether I'm gonna swing it, the actions in the slot look very similar. The racket strings are facing down and the racket is on edge. And the racket tip is pointed toward the side back fence area. Not pointed here generally, it can be, but generally in a full windup, if they have time, the pros are gonna take it back somewhat more in this manner. So from here, if I'm going to throw it up into the air to the left up there, I'm gonna keep this string down on edge dynamic, which we'll talk about more. And I'm gonna unwind this coiled arm and the wrist, a very loose, feeling, whipping, throwing action. And that racket, if I left it go in the air, is gonna, as you saw, travel around the center of mass on this arcway. On the swing, very similar, right? We're gonna keep the racket strings face down, and in the first part of the swing, as we saw in the video, racket strings remain closed and the racket head is trailing behind my hand, which we'll talk about shortly. So we're driving out here to the right with the handle more pointed out towards the net post over here, not towards the incoming ball. This is a big mistake. Players or teachers are always recommending that the student turn the butt of the racket towards the incoming ball. Well, you can see what that does to my racket head. It shoots it out here to the outer arc of the swing path too early. We want this behind us, trailing all the way into the turn of the topspin swing. And then at the turn, again, we're releasing on an edge, but that edge does plane up, obviously, to be more vertical at contact, but not completely vertical. As I was saying, as we reach the turn, second phase of the swing, we've come from the slot, but now we're at the turn. The racket head is usually dropping behind the hand and the elbow at this point. And then as we start to approach the contact zone, this racket path is going to go, racket head is going to go in a sharply vertical manner, 25 to 35 degrees of vertical, right in here. So in order to get both power and spin, compression on the ball, and the spin that we want on the topspin shot, this racket face must be closed to vertical in this manner. Not like this, that's 90 degrees, but 8 or 12% closed. So that as it passes through this vertical path, the ball can compress on the strings and get the spin that you want. Instead, if we have the old way of setting the racket on edge and coming into contact in a much flatter horizontal way, all we can do is hit a flat, soft ball. We try to really hit topspin with that. It really doesn't work. So we have to have a sharply ascending path, and this racket face remains closed in this windshield wiper action that we saw with the GOATs, Djokovic, Federer, and almost all of the ATP pros now have this uniform, not uniform, but a windshield wiper release